Drug-addicted chronic offenders will be getting help to break out of their criminal cycle. I'm Dave Adams. Deschutes County Probation and Parole is receiving $426,000 over the next 2 years to fund the requirements of Measure 57. Ken Hales is the director of the Deschutes County Community Justice Department. He says the money will make a significant difference, especially to the subset of offenders that is being targeted.
These offenders are chronic property offenders or drug offenders who are addicted to drugs or alcohol. And the idea behind this is two-part. One is to finance enhanced supervision for these individuals, but also to finance the treatment services they need. Part of the problem we have now is almost all the treatment services received by our offenders are financed by the offenders. We have perhaps $25,000 in our budget right now to fund indigent treatment services for all our offenders, which is not, this $25,000 is not a very significant amount of money for the number of offenders supervised. But this will provide us a healthy amount of money to provide indigents funding for these services, but it also allows us to have a PO that we can dedicate just for supervising that kind of caseload.
How many offenders do you track here in Deschutes County?
We have approximately 1,700 offenders under supervision on any given day. This particular program is going to target about 70 offenders on any given day under intensive supervision, and then they'll also provide us some additional monies to finance treatment for those persons, as well as some treatment services for those that aren't under intensive supervision but have a drug or alcohol addiction.
So this money will help fund a parole officer that is going to be specifically in this program to monitor these offenders with intense supervision, as you put it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this going to make a difference to get them off this treadmill, this revolving cycle of not being able to get a job because they're on treatment? And you mentioned before we started the tape about this cycle. That first of all, describe the cycle that they get caught in.
Part of the paradox, or the catch-22, is that offenders can't get work, particularly these days, because they have an addiction. And they can't pay for their treatment because they have no work. So somehow we have to get them moving in the right direction, and this will help us do that. Will at least help us get them in treatment, and then as they progress through their treatment, they'll be in a position where they can start looking for work and actually have the wherewithal to engage in work successfully.
How successful do you think this will be?
It's hard for me to say how successful, but the literature is convincing and clear that surveillance alone will not change the offender. Now, we will engage in intensive supervision. That's the surveillance component, the public safety component. But if you actually want to change their behavior so that they don't commit crime once you quit looking over their shoulder, they have to have the treatment too. And there's plenty of evidence in the criminal justice literature that says both those components have to be in play if you want to be successful.
Is this going to be ongoing funding, or is this a one-time shot from Measure 57?
Right now, it is current law, so obviously the legislature can change law in the future, but we anticipate this to be ongoing funding.
Measure 57 requiring addiction treatment for drug-addicted offenders. Exactly what does Measure 57 do?
Well, the primary component of it is, and the most expensive component is, it extends the length of sentences and requires mandatory prison time for repeat property offenders. But Measure 57 included not only some extension of mandatory sentencing and the length of sentence, but also some community-based service money to provide these treatment services.
Does Measure 57 also do a good job, in your opinion, of providing some kind of carrot for people to get off the treadmill?
We're convinced, and we see it all the time with the offenders we work with, once you get them into treatment and they get over some of those hurdles of resistance, of denial, to acceptance, to pre-change attitudes, to change attitudes, then you can start seeing progress with changing their lifestyles. Many of our offenders, particularly these days, simply can't get into treatment because there's no financing for it.
Ken Hale says the new program is to be initiated after the first of the year. I'm Dave Adams. Take 5 is a presentation of 1110 KBND Radio News. Depend on us.